This video is all about the windscreen wiper washer pump in the Mercedes R107. The same pump was also used on the Mercedes W113 Pagoda and possibly many other models as well. We're going to show you how to potentially repair one of these pumps, how to take it to pieces, what you can do if your pump cannot be repaired, because unfortunately they don't make exactly this pump anymore. So we're going to be showing you some potential alternatives to this pump and what you might have to do to modify the pump to make the existing plug fit. Now, if you want to have a go at repairing one of these pumps, you just need to take out the four little bolts at the end, and this will come apart, and the actual bracket is just sandwiched between the two things, and this section here holds the motor, and you can test whether the motor is working simply by putting a 9-volt battery across there, making sure you get the terminals right, and if that thing turns, it means the motor is working. On the bottom half here is often where things go horribly wrong. This top section will just lift off like this, and what happens is the metal little wing nut there, for want of a better word, interfaces with this, makes this turn. So this section here is actually the pump section, and often you'll find that you get rust or bits of paint and gunk, etc. in these channels, and just by simply clearing that out and lubricating the mechanism in here, you can get the pump working again. Now, unfortunately, in our particular case, this pump is what they say in technical terms knackered. It's not supposed to, I don't know how well you can hear that, but it's not supposed to rattle. So whilst the pump works and turns, it doesn't actually suck. So we're going to have to replace this pump, which unfortunately, as I mentioned, they do not make this pump anymore. If you go along to Mercedes or the SL shop and buy a new pump, you will get a pump that has the same physical dimensions, but it will have spade terminals like this. So what you'll have to do is go along to your car, snip off the plug, and solder on or tape on or crimp on a spade plug, which I don't want to do that because I don't like modifying the wiring on an SL. If possible, I like to keep it OEM. So one thing you can do is go along to FEBI or the SL shop and buy a pump like this, which has the correct plug on the top. The disadvantage is that the actual input and output terminals are in a slightly different position to the original pump. The original pump, they're both on the top like that, and also the original pump has a bracket integrated into it, but that is not a big problem. You could potentially just go along to a hardware store, buy a bracket like that, drill a hole in it, either glue that in or bond it in some other way, and that would be job done. This pump here is FEBI part number 48636. That's the pump with the spade terminals on. This pump here with the correct terminals on, albeit without a bracket, is FEBI part number 08679, and the pump that we're going to use is FEBI part number 14877. What I'm actually going to do is see if we can modify a different FEBI pump. Now, this is ideally for Volvos, and it has a very similar plug on top, but it's slightly different. The pins are slightly different width apart, and of course it has this surround here, but it has the bracket orientated in the right way. And I think what we're going to do is try and modify this pump here to fit our existing plug. Just arrived a week after we bought it from eBay is one of these Volvo plugs here, and the rubber connectors and also the spade connectors. So what we're going to do is we are going to crimp those onto a female Mercedes plug, which basically plugs in like so, and then we can use this pump here instead of this pump here. They're both the same dimensions, without modifying the wiring on our car. First thing we're going to do is just cut these wires, and remember to put these rubber terminals on first before we start stripping the wires, because it is incredibly easy to forget to do that. These wires are actually quite a tight fit down there, so what we're going to do is just add a drop of washing up liquid. You can also use silicone spray, but what you shouldn't do is use oil or anything like that, because you do not want to use an oil-based product on rubber. We don't need these wires to be too long. I think this is about the right length here. That will end up being like that. So I'm just going to cut these two wires here and here. Next up, we're just going to strip these wires. Next, we need to crimp on these terminals. Now, these end tabs here are designed to wrap around the insulation, and this tab is designed to hold the wire tight. Now, you've got a choice. You can either use cheap and cheerful things like this, or we're going to try and use our proper crimpers that we happen to have as a result of our Dejectronic harness that we did for this car. And there we have pretty much a perfect crimp. Once you've put the casing on, it should just be a matter of plugging that in, like so, clicking that under there. That's in nice and tightly, plugging this into the Mercedes plug, and that should be the pump working. Now, in this particular case, our bracket is really rusty. Otherwise, you could just take this bracket off and use the bracket on here. But what I'm going to do is probably just cut this bracket here with an angle grinder, make it the same size, and drill a hole in to mount it. Now, a better solution would be to actually 3D print a plug. So you would take the cap off this here, and then you would 3D print a plug like that. So these two terminals would just fit straight onto there. However, I don't have a 3D printer, and the cost of actually getting all the graphics done and printing it would be about £200, which kind of outweighs the benefit. For anyone out there that does have a 3D printer, what would be great is to have a 3D printed plug that fits these Mercedes terminals and fits one of these FEBI Volvo pumps. When you come to reconnect your pump, just remember that this input here is the one that connects to the tank, and this input here connects to the sprayers on the bonnet. So the one closest to the negative terminal here to the tank, and the positive is the one that goes to the nozzles. We're here down at the garage, and all we need to do is plug that pump in, turn the car on, and see if the windscreen wiper pump actually works. We're not going to connect it up to the hose there just for the moment, because I don't want the windscreen wiper washer fluid all over the windscreen and the bonnet. So we'll just temporarily use this spare bit of hose and see if it pumps into here. There we go, we can see that that's pumping in here now. We can now hook the hose up to the rest of the car and secure that pump on, and that's another job to cross off the list. And there we have got that mounted on the side there. I've actually used the existing bracket that came with it, and that's just bolted through in a pre-existing hole here. Still to do on this car is a heater blur resistor. They do sell remanufactured ones at the SL shop, but they are hundreds of pounds, so we're going to look for a cheaper alternative. I have to take off the AAV, or auxiliary air valve, on this car. It's just leaking. I did take it off before, and that's probably why it's leaking. I've got a new gasket for it, but I probably need to free it up as well. Once we've done that, we're pretty much done in the engine block. Then we just need to put a new soft top on this car. I've got the soft top, it's just a matter of finding time to fit it. We've got some windscreen trims to put on there. I'm not sure whether to take the windscreen out and actually redo the clips. Once we've got the new soft top on, we can realign the windows, put the door cards on, put the other seat in, and then we are pretty much ready to go on this car. We bought our windscreen wiper washer pump from these guys here, Car Parts in Motion, on eBay, paid just £15 delivered, and as I mentioned, it's FEBI part number 14877. The Volvo plug adapter also came from eBay from these guys here, came from China, took about a week to get there, and including the spade terminals and rubber connectors, just £3.36.